Hi, I'm Mike Peters, and this is China Daily's Big Talk. Today, we have the privilege of having a chat with the First Lady of the U.S. Embassy, the wife of Gary Locke, our U.S. Ambassador, Mona Locke.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great.
We're so glad to have you. Mrs. Locke is the wife of U.S. Ambassador Gary Locke, a former television reporter in the United States, a former Miss Asian American, is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah, and former First Lady of Washington State, where Mr. Locke was governor for 2 terms. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Thank you so much for being here with us.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
You've all been here now for a year. How does it feel? How are you settling in?
You know, it feels a lot more like home. I think when we moved here from Washington, D.C., we weren't sure what to expect, but we were very much welcomed by the Chinese, and I think it's been a transitional year for the kids and their schools, and for us where we live, and just trying to figure out, where to go shop, buy your groceries, and all the everyday things. So it's been a transition. So it kind of felt good coming back from summer vacation in the States, coming to Beijing and feeling like we were back home.
Yeah. Well, there is, as you know, tremendous interest in you and your family. You took a little vacation recently in Guilin, I think that was just an internet sensation, sort of like when the ambassador, and maybe all of you were in the famous Starbucks in Seattle on your way here, and the ambassador had a backpack, and he carried it himself, and he used a gift card, and it was just
It didn't
so
work.
amazing.
The gift card didn't work. It was
Well, that was
rejected.
a problem, too. It's supposed to work, right? He's Gary Locke, darn it. Does that kind of interest surprise you, that it keeps going? And that
I think
that personal?
I think it did. It surprised us when we came and we were at the Seattle airport, and my husband bought his infamous cup of coffee or latte. And by the time we got off the plane, I think there was a buzz. And so there was an interest in us. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we're Chinese American.
Right.
So we look like all the Chinese, and we have a background that incorporates the Chinese culture,
Sure.
but yet we're born in America and we're 100% American. So I think there's a fascination. So over the year, and I think when we were on vacation, we were a little surprised. And we actually didn't even know about it until we got back from the vacation that, we'd been spotted. But I think we understand fully why there's that fascination.
Is that a good thing for America?
I think that it truly helps for understanding the culture on both sides, right? So the Chinese can see what it's like to be an American. I mean, Gary can't be more American.
Sure.
And does it help? I think so, because I think anytime we understand how the Chinese live and what's important to them, as well as when they understand where Americans come from and what shapes our point of view, I think that's important.
Yeah. So is it possible for you and your husband to go out and have a night on the town without being spotted in Beijing?
I think so, because I think in our minds, it's just us. So when we're out in the town, we're not worried about anyone else. We're just together, spending time together. Whether someone is taking pictures or when people come up and ask for a photo with them, I think for us it's an honor. Because really, we're here to represent America. And I think if people take notice and they want photos, it's a great thing. It's a positive thing. When that's not happening, I think we're just thinking of ourselves. And you can't live in a fishbowl. We learned long ago when he was governor and I was First Lady, there was a fascination because we had all of our kids while serving in office. And I think we learned long before that you just have to be yourself.
You have 3 kids.
We have 3 kids.
And they are?
They are 7, 13, and 15. Our biggest hope is that our kids learn about the culture, because it is obviously the same culture of their grandparents and their grandparents' homeland. And I hope that they learn Chinese well.
They all studying it?
They are all studying it, and this year I moved my daughter into a dual language program. So half the day is taught in English and the other half is taught in Chinese.
Uh-huh. And how's your Chinese?
My Chinese is improving. I didn't speak as much when I came, but my parents, my father's from Shanghai. Both my parents are from China. So back home in America growing up, I heard them speaking Chinese to each other, but they really wanted to emphasize speaking English with us because we were in a new country.
Sure.
And they wanted us to grow up and be Americans like everyone else.
But did having the tones in your head help?
I think having the tones in my head helped. I'm what you call a heritage learner, where I have heard it and I know a certain amount of the vocabulary, but I had never really pieced words together and spoken in sentences. So I'm getting a lot of practice, and I'm really enjoying it.
And can the ambassador make time to do that?
He is taking Chinese classes.
Is he?
He is.
Yeah.
But his progress is slow.
Well, it's a hard language.
It is. It's a difficult
language.
language.
Even if it was in your house, I'm sure it was a hard language.
Yes.
You were in the most recent issue of Vogue magazine.
Yeah, I was.
Kind of a fun little cool story. How did that happen?
Well, it was really, I think, the contact through the embassy. And so it was just a great honor, and I was surprised.
Your sense of style has been celebrated before, not just in this issue of Vogue. I know last year when you were at a state dinner, there was a headline in one of the political blogs that you and your dress were the star of the dinner. So can you tell us a little bit about that and what designers you might like besides Lu Liang in Seattle?
Yeah, I mean, it was quite surprising, I think, to be recognized for the dress I was wearing. But it was designed by my friend Lu Liang in Seattle, and so I don't think that there's a way to really classify my sense of style. I think I wear what I think looks good, and I'm, it doesn't matter who the designer, as long as I think it looks great.
Yeah. Are you developing any interest or relationships with the fashion industry here at all?
Not as much. I mean, I think that there's been a relationship in terms of I've been interviewed by quite a few of them, and so we've met the fashion editors, but in terms of the fashion, that hasn't been my focus. While I've been here, the focus has really been helping to transition the kids into schools, really balancing work-life, and also helping on certain initiatives with the embassy.
What kinds of initiatives?
Oh, I think they have some amazing host of initiatives. I tend to focus on family and children and education. So we have, the President Obama had a 100,000 strong initiative,
right,
which was really focused on student exchange between the U.S. coming here to China, because annually there's about 160,000 Chinese kids, students, who go abroad to the U.S. to study, and we only had about 15,000 Americans coming here to China. So really the President wanted us to increase that number to 100,000 over a 4-year period. So we've been focusing on trying to get companies to help fund universities, programs in universities that would accept the kids, and also really the outreach and education to kids in the U.S. to come study in China. I think there's a fear sometimes about, China is so far away, and I think really this initiative is not aimed at the elite student. It's really aimed at the everyday student, one who might come from a farm in Kansas, or someone who may not have thought about studying abroad in China. So really it's that exposure to build that relationship between the Chinese and the American people.
Okay. I know when you were in the States, you made a trip over here several years ago to do a PBS documentary on early education, which I know is a big interest of yours. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience and maybe what you've seen now that you're back here that relates to that?
Yes, so I worked on and helped co-produce and anchored a documentary, 1-hour documentary on early learning here in China, because I was curious, working in education in the United States, just, how are the Chinese preparing their kids for the future generations? And I think we were surprised there was such a focus and almost a different definition of early learning for the Chinese back then, in terms of with a one-child policy and such a large population here, parents are really willing to do whatever it takes for their child to succeed.
Sure.
So what was curious to me was that they had boarding kindergartens where the parent would sacrifice that one-on-one time with the child during the week and put them in a kindergarten for the entire week, because they felt that that would give the child the edge in education, and stepping up and standing above rest of the kids. So I think that was tough for us, an interesting eye-opener, but I also thought they were doing a lot of things that were preparing their kids for the future in a competitive global market. And so it's interesting when you look now at the U.S. education system, and everyone, I think, is struggling to try and find what's the best balance for our kids.
I was struck reading the story, the interview that you gave with Vogue, where you made the comment that you cried the night of the election when your husband became governor of Washington because you realized that your life would never be the same again. Have you reached some kind of a balance with that situation? Because obviously you've been in public life for a while now.
That's right. You know, I think I didn't actually openly cry. It was an interesting phenomenon. My mom, we were watching the election results, and my husband was projected the winner. And my mom came over and put her arm around me and said, "Congratulations, honey, you won." And just involuntarily, tears just streamed down my eyes. It was an interesting thing because I couldn't control it, but I didn't feel like I was crying. But tears, and what I realized was my whole life was going to change, and I didn't know what to expect. Because I had been trained as a journalist. I loved journalism. It was my life. And so here was a whole new chapter of life and unknown.
Yeah. And
it has been many years since then, and I have just loved every minute. Because as I look at it, as I said, it's every change has been a new chapter and a new adventure. And as a journalist, the reason I got involved in journalism was really to learn.
That's what you went out of that experience,
right.
too?
Exactly. I mean, to learn about people, to learn about your environment, your community, and I think being First Lady, I started getting involved in nonprofits because what I realized was there are a lot of organizations out there doing amazing things and helping people each and every day. And so that turned me more into an activist in terms of that way and supporting nonprofit work. So that was one chapter, starting my own nonprofit, Foundation for Early Learning, while First Lady and working with Melinda Gates, and that was a chapter of life. It was exciting. The next chapter, working for Susan G. Komen and really educating on breast cancer awareness and raising funds for research and saving lives. So I look at every single new adventure as a positive. And coming to China, I mean,
it's a different way to channel your interest.
Yes, I mean, what better experience than to expose your children to this culture that is your family's homeland, right? And for us to be able to learn the language and live globally. I think there are so many people who, whether in China or in the States, who never leave their hometown, and you don't broaden your horizons. And I think that this has been a wonderful opportunity. And I think added to that is the fact that I just genuinely like people. And so it's helped. I think my husband, it has probably helped that he's married to someone who enjoys meeting people, learning about them, and it's all those skills that you have in journalism and what drives people to go into journalism, the curiosity.
Right. You have been with your husband many times, I'm sure, when he's talked about what a pleasure it's been for him to go down to Guangdong and learn more about his personal genealogy and ancestry. Do you have a story like that you've been able to learn more about your own heritage here since you've been here?
Well, I think I'm very fortunate in that both my parents, that immigrated to the U.S. We were born and raised there, and my dad had a business, and when he retired, they both moved back to China. So we're actually so fortunate when we moved here to have family here also. And so they are living in Shanghai and Zhuhai, which is in the south of China. And so they come and visit frequently. So we're reminded constantly, obviously, of our background and our heritage here. So my father, on our first visit back when my husband was elected governor back in 1997, we did a first visit to China as the first Chinese-American governor in the United States. So it was really a historic time for us.
Sure.
And I had called my parents, and this is before they had come back to live. And they had not been back to China for many decades. And so I had asked them to come on this trip. I said, you should just come back and see. It's a different China, right? Many things have changed. It's been many decades. So they came back. And one night, after all the meetings were done, it was about 9 o'clock at night, we jumped in the little minivan. And actually, I said to my friends, who were all journalists, hey, come along. We're going to find where my father grew up. And so all he remembered, in Shanghai, and all he remembered was that he was in the French Quarter. So we drove around, and he gave directions to the bus driver. Miraculously, he found the house. And, it was a 3-story house, and the lion doorhead knockers were still on it. And we went and knocked on the door, and we met there were several families who were living there now. And so it was really a wonderful retracing of his footsteps to his past. And I think
how old was he? Sorry.
He, at the time of what?
When he left
When he
Shanghai?
left, I think he was about 12, 13. And so I think it kind of
That's
reopened
pretty
the
good.
door for him and the prospect of moving back to
Yeah.
China.
Did he expect to find it?
No.
Yeah.
I don't even think he had thought about it until I brought it up, right?
Yeah.
And so I think the memories were flowing back. He's like, oh, this is where we used to, roller skate and this. And so he was just talking about all
Yeah.
these memories that he wouldn't talk about when we were growing up.
Yeah. Has that meant a lot to your kids to be able to have that kind of conversation?
Yeah, I think so. I think it has connected them more so. They're just American kids grown up, everyday life. And so now they've been plucked out of that existence and are now living in a foreign country. And for them, I think it's been an eye-opener.
Yeah.
We went back to Seattle for a little bit this summer, and upon coming back to Beijing, the ambassador and I were really pleased when we heard them talking about, wow, I was amazed that it wasn't more global, or there weren't more people from different countries. Because I think here in China, people would be surprised that it is so global. Because you think it's just the Chinese, but really it's people from all different countries who have come here for opportunity and really to help build the country also. I think that's an amazing thing to expose your kids to.
And you can walk down almost any sidewalk in Beijing, in any part of the city, and pass somebody who's speaking French or Serbian or whatever.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
I think people's preconceived notions of China are much different than what China is really like. And I think that's why we were so involved with the 100,000 Strong and other initiatives for student exchange, because we really think that the bilateral relationship has to start young with the exposure and erasing the fears of the Chinese, of the Americans, and the Americans likewise of the Chinese, and really helping them start build that relationship now and build the communication.
You're starting a program that's going to be
well,
broadcast, right?
It's a lot of fun. So the embassy has been so wonderful to work with me and start a program last year actually called U.S.-China Focus.
Okay.
And we do panel interviews with a live audience, Q&A, and we upload it online. So it's a lot of fun. There's
That's sort of
audience
home week for you then, huh?
Participation. Exactly. It's kind of like going back to what I used to do, but having more fun with it because we're really discussing some of the bilateral issues that are impacting both countries, and I think it's interesting, and we'd love to have you come down.
I would love to do that. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Well, it's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.